Okay, so here is the foldable. When you open it up, you'll cut off the top two triangles and glue them in right here. And I just wrote the abbreviations of all those. Okay, so things that I want you to notice. This says side, 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 so it has nothing to do with the angles. And we talked yesterday about how to mark angles, and it's these little arc marks. This is how you mark sides. There are no angles marked on either one of these triangles, but all of the sides are marked congruent. So because of that, since all the sides are congruent, we know that the two triangles are congruent. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EFG. All right, we're going to take the next set of triangles, cut it off, and glue it on. All right, so I have two triangles right here. And one thing that you guys may notice is that if I cover up one of my triangles, I've got one side and one angle. But that's a problem because this one is called side, angle, side. But these sides are like smushed together, and they actually have a shared side right here. So from P to R, it's the same for the triangle on the left as it is for the triangle on the right. So anytime you see that, it's a shared side, which is the reflexive property, which we will talk about a lot tomorrow because you get to do proofs, yay. But anytime you see a shared side, you need to go ahead and mark it. It will never be marked, but it's a lot easier to see when you mark it. So this is side, angle, side, because the angle touches both congruent sides, all right? So the angle is in between the two sides, but the angle touches both congruent sides. That's important. The angle, oh, maybe I'll make this a little bigger so I can see. The angle touches both congruent sides. Therefore, triangle SPR is congruent to triangle. Okay, S and Q match up. And then a lot of times people want to say SPR and then QPR, but they would be wrong. Because notice P on the triangle on the left is the same as R on the triangle on the right. So it's actually SPR and then QRP. So they're flipped. All right. So this is important. The angle has to touch both of the congruent sides. So here's my angle. It touches both sides. Y'all see that? All right, we're going to cut off. This HL is actually the one with the right triangle, so that's on the bottom of the paper. These must be right triangles, so that's important. And then the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. So you see, if I point starting from the right angle and point across the triangle, it always points to the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse has to be one of them, and then either leg. So it could be this leg or this leg could be marked congruent, but it has to be one of them. But that is the third reason that shows congruence. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. All right, now we're going to take this one, the little bow tie looking one, and we're going to glue that one on for angle, side, angle. Okay, this picture right here, I don't know if you guys noticed something. There is a type of angle here and here that we know are congruent. And these are those angles that we talked about in the first unit. And I was like, they're never going away. And here we are in Unit 5, and they're still here, these vertical angles. So those are never going to be marked for you, like almost never. Like maybe occasionally they will be marked. But most of the time you have to be able to look and identify, oh, those are vertical angles, and mark them. Because when you look at this, you're like, oh, there's nothing. There's one angle and there's one side. That's not enough. That's not two angles and one side. So you have to be able to identify these are vertical angles, and they are congruent because vertical angles are congruent. And so the side touches both angles. All right, y'all see the side? And y'all see how it touches this angle, and then it touches this angle over here? That has to happen for angle, side, angle. All right, the side touches both angles, and then triangle AED is congruent to triangle. So A matches with B, the E's match up, and then C. All right. Glue the last set of triangles on. All right, now that we have these glued on, we look at the picture, and I want you to notice the difference between these two, because these two, if you're going to miss one, you're probably going to get these two mixed up, is honestly the two that sometimes people miss. Angle, the side does not touch. And you may want to like underline not touch both angles. All right, you see the sides over here, and you see how this side touches one angle, but not this one over here? That's how you tell the difference. All right, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EFG because of angle, side angle. So these are the only 5 reasons that you can use to prove that these triangles are congruent. There's 2 of them, so what you'll do is you'll turn to the back, so you'll kind of skip this page, we'll come back to it. Turn to the back of this, it's blank. You're going to write something on here for me. You're going to write this. Yeah. And you can write that second word forward or backwards, I don't care, whatever you want to do. These are not reasons, but they tend to get mixed up. So on Delta Math, if you select these reasons, AAA or SSA, you are going to also select not congruent, and you'll see what I mean when we get to Delta Math. Okay, so for this problem right here, you cover the bottom triangle up and you look at it, you're like, oh gosh, I only have one angle on one side. This isn't going to work. I've got to figure out which one of these 5 am I going to use to prove these triangles congruent. But notice, just like on the second one, you do have a shared side. Or like 2 sides that touch. So we can go ahead and mark that. And just FYI, it's not always going to be side angle side when there is a shared side. It just happened to be this time. But that's not always the case, so don't get confused with that. But if you look, here's my angle. And it has to touch both congruent sides. So does this angle touch this side and this side? It does. For this one, does this angle touch that side and that side? It does. So that one is going to be side angle side. So in Delta Math, you would like click on side angle side, and then there'd be another drop down, and you would say congruent. So you choose side angle side, and then you choose congruent. But if it happens to be one of these 2, then the second column would be not congruent. All right. Next one. So I look here, and I don't really like this problem because there's actually 2 correct answers for this. The first one is just like look at the top triangle and look at the bottom triangle and realize I've got 2 angles in a side, but the side doesn't touch both angles. So it's going to be angle, angle, side. But you could argue that it is also angle, side, angle because of the vertical angles. All right? You will never, I'm not going to give you one that has 2 correct answers and expect you to only put a certain one. Don't worry about that, okay? Next, this problem right here. You look at it and you're like, oh, right angles, probably hypotenuse leg. But in this case, it's not. Sometimes it is hypotenuse leg. In this case, it's not. Because look what's going on. I've got my 2 right angles, which are congruent. And then I've got 2 sides. But the hypotenuse is not marked congruent. So if you guys can't identify that hypotenuse, you're just going to take that right angle. You're going to put across the triangle. Those are not marked congruent. So you cannot put HL there. What you can do is side, angle, side. In this case. So just pay attention. That happens on Delta Math. Sometimes the right angles will be side, angle, side. Sometimes the right triangles will be hypotenuse leg. You just have to make sure the hypotenuse is marked or not. For this one, we're going to turn the paper to the side. We're actually going to redraw these triangles because they look confusing. All right, so I have FED here, and then I have CBA. All right, FED and CBA. And then D and C are marked congruent. So you can mark those. And then EF and BA are the same. ED and BC are the same. All right. So we look at this and we're like, okay, I've got an angle and I've got 2 sides. So what are my choices? This is kind of like the thought process you go which one has two sides and one angle? Only one of them does. It's side, angle, side. So you verify, is that angle touching both of those sides? Does this angle touch this side that's on the other side of the triangle? It doesn't, right? So you cannot put side, angle, side for this or you will get it wrong. This one is side, side, angle, which means not congruent. So like on Delta Math, when you get a problem like this, which they're not going to overlap on Delta Math, don't worry. You would write in side, side, angle, you would write not congruent. Number 5, I'm not going to redraw it, but just imagine these two sides, or these two triangles split apart. And notice none of the angles are marked at all. And so, but all of the sides are marked. So this one is just side, side, side. So anytime you have all the sides and no angles, it's probably the easiest one to identify. Not necessarily this picture because it's kind of confusing. But no angles, all sides just means side, side, side. For this one, I am going to redraw this one because it is just a hot mess. But this is D, A, B, and C, F, E. So D and C are the same. And then these are the two sides that are marked. Okay? So the main thing about this that's confusing is the fact that the triangles overlap. We'll look more at overlapping triangles tomorrow. But if you just draw them separately, it's a lot easier. Actually, it's Thursday, I think, before we look at overlapping triangles. But it's side, angle in between, and then another side. There's a lot of side, angle, side here. All right, I don't love this problem. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. There is a right angle. The hypotenuse in one of the legs is marked. But it is honestly a confusing picture to see. And the ones on Delta Math that you're going to practice with are a lot easier to see. So just, if you're confused on hypotenuse leg, use this picture to make it make more sense. Because this one is just rough. We could draw them separately, but I don't want to spend the time to do it. Okay, last one. See, we have a shared side, so I'm going to mark that side congruent. And this means side, these mean angle. Don't forget that. Your arc marks mean angle, that means side. So you have two angles in one side, and if you look over here, you're like, okay, so it could either be angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. So the determining factor is, does the side touch both angles, or does it not touch both angles? Here's my side. It touches this angle and that angle. So that is what tells you that it's ASA. It would be angle, angle, side if it was like this one, where the side is opposite one of the angles. All right, that is all.